What are some of the biggest military setbacks in U.S. history? That's the question we're exploring today. In the next few minutes, we're going to venture back in time and delve into some of the harshest battles and most significant defeats the United States has ever faced. From the plains of the Little Bighorn to the streets of Mogadishu, we'll examine the events that shaped these conflicts, the reasons behind the setbacks, and the profound impacts they had. We'll see that these events were not just about military strategy and tactics, but also about the complexities of politics, culture, and human spirit. Each one provides a unique perspective on the trials and tribulations of warfare, and together, they paint a broader picture of U.S. military history. So, if you're ready to embark on this journey, buckle up. Without further ado, let's delve into the annals of U.S. military history. Our journey begins in 1876 with the Battle of the Little Bighorn, a pivotal event in the annals of American military history. Picture an era of rapid U.S. expansion, colliding headlong with the fierce resistance of Native American tribes. This was the backdrop to the infamous conflict known as Custer's Last Stand. Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, brimming with bravado and a hunger for glory, led his 7th Cavalry into the heart of the combined forces of the Lakota Sioux and Cheyenne tribes. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Custer's forces were ultimately annihilated in a brutal display of indigenous military prowess. The Battle of the Little Bighorn was more than just a military defeat. It was a stark reminder of the heavy price of overconfidence and underestimation. It served as a blow to the notion of invincibility often associated with the U.S. military. A devastating loss, this battle underscored the resilience of indigenous tribes against U.S. expansion. Fast forward to the 1940s, World War II brought more challenges for the U.S. military. Among these were the battles of Wake Island and Bataan. Let's delve into these historical events and understand their significance. Wake Island, a small coral atoll in the Pacific, became the stage for a fierce confrontation in December 1941. The U.S. garrison stationed there, numbering fewer than 500 Marines, sailors, and soldiers, faced an overwhelming Japanese force. Despite the odds stacked against them, these brave men held their ground, repelling several waves of enemy attacks. Their resistance was nothing short of heroic, but after a grueling 15 days, they were forced to surrender. It was a devastating blow, but their tenacity became a symbol of American resilience. Meanwhile, the Battle of Bataan unfolded in the Philippines from January to April 1942. The U.S. and Filipino forces defending the Bataan Peninsula were outnumbered and outgunned. They faced not only the might of the Japanese army, but also the unforgiving jungle terrain and a severe lack of supplies and reinforcements. Despite their desperate situation, they managed to hold out for 3 long months. But in the end, the defenders were compelled to surrender, marking the largest capitulation in American military history. The survivors endured the infamous Bataan Death March, a gruesome 65-mile trek that claimed many lives. Both Wake Island and Bataan serve as stark reminders of the harsh realities of war. They were significant setbacks for the U.S., not just in terms of lost territory, but also in the heavy toll they exacted on the morale and spirit of the American forces. The defenders fought with courage and determination, but their efforts were ultimately overwhelmed by superior enemy numbers and resources. These battles highlighted the ruthlessness of war and the cost of underestimating one's enemies. They underscored the importance of strategic planning, adequate resources, and a keen understanding of the enemy, lessons that would inform future military campaigns. Moving into the Cold War era, 2 notable setbacks stand out: the Bay of Pigs invasion and the Vietnam War. Each had its unique circumstances, yet both highlighted the complexities of international politics and the perils of interventionism. The Bay of Pigs invasion, a chapter from 1961, was a CIA-sponsored mission aiming to overthrow Fidel Castro's regime in Cuba. The plan involved 1,400 Cuban exiles, trained by the CIA, landing on Cuba's southern coast, hoping to spark an uprising against Castro. However, the operation was a fiasco. The exiles were met with unexpected resistance, and the hoped-for uprising never materialized. In less than 3 days, most of the invaders were captured or killed, marking a humiliating setback for the U.S. The failed invasion not only strengthened Castro's position but also pushed Cuba closer to the Soviet Union, setting the stage for the Cuban Missile Crisis the following year. Then, there's the Vietnam War, a protracted conflict that spanned 2 decades from 1955 to 1975. The U.S. involvement was driven by the domino theory, the belief that if one country fell to communism, others would follow. However, the war proved to be a quagmire. Despite deploying more than 500,000 troops at its peak and dropping more bombs than in all of World War II, the US couldn't achieve a decisive victory. The war's human cost was staggering, with more than 58,000 American lives lost. Furthermore, the conflict eroded public trust in government and left a lasting impact on American society. The withdrawal of US forces and the subsequent fall of Saigon to the North Vietnamese in 1975 marked a significant defeat for the US. These events demonstrated the complexities of international politics and the perils of interventionism. They served as harsh lessons about the limitations of military power and the importance of understanding local dynamics when intervening in foreign conflicts. In more recent history, the US military faced significant challenges on multiple fronts. Let's start with the Desert One operation in 1980. It was a daring mission during the Iran hostage crisis. The goal was to rescue 52 American hostages held captive in the US Embassy in Tehran. However, the operation was plagued by a slew of logistical and mechanical failures. An unexpected dust storm, known as a haboob, caused low visibility, leading to a collision between a helicopter and a transport plane. This accident resulted in the death of 8 American servicemen, forcing the mission to be aborted. The failure of Desert One was a major setback, both strategically and in terms of morale. Moving on, let's talk about the Battle of Mogadishu in 1993, also known as the Black Hawk Down incident. US troops were deployed to Somalia as part of a United Nations humanitarian effort to end the famine caused by civil war. However, the mission took a tragic turn when 2 US helicopters were shot down in Mogadishu during an operation to capture faction leader Mohammed Farah Aidid. The ensuing battle resulted in heavy casualties, with 18 American soldiers losing their lives and more than 70 wounded. The images of American bodies being dragged through the streets of Mogadishu shocked the world and led to a shift in US policy towards peacekeeping missions. Lastly, we turn to the Iraq War that spanned from 2003 to 2011. This wasn't a single defeat, but a prolonged and complex conflict. The initial phase of the war, known as shock and awe, led to the rapid overthrow of Saddam Hussein's regime, but that was just the beginning. The US found itself mired in a protracted insurgency, facing sectarian violence, and grappling with the task of nation-building. Despite the bravery and sacrifice of countless servicemen and women, the war resulted in the loss of thousands of American lives, and left many more wounded. It also strained US resources, eroded international standing, and led to a widespread questioning of the initial decision to invade. The Iraq War, with its mixed outcomes, stands as a sobering lesson in the unpredictability of warfare and the long-term consequences of military interventions. These events underscored the unpredictability of warfare and the consequences of strategic missteps. The Desert One operation, the Battle of Mogadishu, and the Iraq War each represented distinct challenges and setbacks for the US military. They serve as reminders that even the most powerful army can face unforeseen obstacles, and that in the fog of war, the line between victory and defeat can often be blurred. Looking back at these events, it's clear that military setbacks are not just about losses on the battlefield. They are complex tapestries woven from strategic miscalculations, logistical failures, and the challenges of navigating political landscapes. From the Battle of the Little Bighorn to the protracted conflict of the Vietnam War, each event has left an indelible mark on the annals of US military history. These episodes underscore the importance of understanding military history and its bearing on contemporary policy and strategy. They serve as reminders that victories are not the only teachers. Defeats too have valuable lessons to impart. They've shaped US military strategies, policy decisions, and spurred innovations that have had far-reaching implications. Remembering these moments in history is not about dwelling on failures, but learning from them, and striving to make better decisions in the future. Until next time, keep exploring history.